I'm going to read a chapter from this book. I'm going to read chapter 4, if I can find it. Okay, yeah, that's the one. Judgment is a mental habit designed to push away uncomfortable things. It's easier to label someone as bad or good than to process the variety of emotions triggered by their behaviors. The tangled yarn of mixed emotions beneath judgment can include forms of fear, such as shock, grief, guilt, betrayal, disappointment, and insecurity. Someone's egotic behavior can also trigger memories of your past experiences, around which you still harbor emotional pain. In this case, your judgment would be a wall that you erect to prevent additional pain. The physical truth is that human egos are based upon a fear ideology, and therefore, to the ego, every decision and action is worthy of being judged. Fearful behavior stems from fearful beliefs. The ego prides itself on being separated from others in a uniquely special and better way. To maintain this illusion, it's necessary for the ego to target other people's egos. Yet every human has an emotional trigger propelling them into fear-based thoughts and actions. If you judge every person for acting fearfully, you will be alone. You will also harshly judge yourself for acting fearfully. There are no 100% love-based people on the planet, including yourself. Judgment creates loneliness as you cast away those who may trigger pain. You work hard to stay safe, even at the cost of being alone. You huddle within your fortress of judgment, where dragons and moats keep everyone far away. In turn, other people judge you as cold, distant, aloof, and so forth. The high price of judgment includes isolation from yourself as well. You don't recognize yourself as a judgmental person because that's not the true you. Your true self is entirely loving, and you can feel this positive resonance within yourself each time you choose a loving thought or action. If you choose fear-based outlooks and actions, you can feel a physically palpable disconnect. The adage, as you judge others, so you judge yourself, applies here, because there is no true separation between you and others. This may help you fully understand this important message. Think of a figure 8 with its continuous loop. One loop on the 8 is you, the other loop is someone else. Notice how the two loops are perpetually connected in perfect mirrors of each other. What you think of another person is cast forward to the adjoining loop as energy travels around the figure 8, affecting both of you. The egotic fear energy feels sharp, cold, and lonely, and both sides of the figure 8 are cast into a restrictive darkness together. Contrast this with sending loving energy to the other loop of the figure 8, and this energy traveling back to you. It feels like a warm, gentle hug that envelops and supports you both. This is an expansive energy that shines brightly like God's love or the physical rays of the sun. Opinions about others always loop back to you. For example, if someone judges you, beware of the mental reaction of automatically judging them in return for being a judgmental person. Judging someone for being in their ego casts you into your ego as well. A similar loop occurs when you catch yourself being judgmental and then harshly judge yourself for walking upon the path of fear. The ego insists upon human imperfection as a way of feeling better than others. Any form of judgment is an affirmation that you are separated from other people. It denies the spiritual truth of the figure 8 connecting and affecting you. Since separation is the most nightmarish illusion, judgment comes at the high price of eliciting deep emotional pain due to feeling lonely, abandoned, isolated, and misunderstood. The ego argues that judgment is justified because the other person's actions were unforgivable. When you think of everyone upon the planet, here's another analogy to illustrate your divine connection. Think of a large, healthy tree with billions of leaves. Each leaf represents a person. While the leaves appear to be separated, they are actually all connected to the same tree, representing God. Each leaf may seem to have its own experience. Perhaps the wind or rain or hit some leaves more than others. And maybe some receive more sunshine than others, yet each leaf is part of the greater whole, comprising of the tree. So it is with you and everyone on this planet. What you do affects others and vice versa. You truly are kin with everyone. Remember that we are speaking of spiritual truths and non-duality, which only sees and acknowledges love. This involves seeing others as God sees everyone, as beloved children who are purposefully created with love. Just like some children, some adults may act in ways that seem thoughtless and hurtful. Certain behaviors seem calculated without regard for others' feelings or safety. In other words, some people spend most or all of their lives walking upon the path of fear. This is the definition of selfish behavior because the ego sees itself in its own universe. Remember that the ego is always jockeying to feel above or better than others, so it judges and compares to achieve this end. To the ego, other people are objects to use for its own needs, or competitors for a mutually desirable objective. The ego also views love as weakness and anger as strength. The ego is miserable and lonely and always searching for something external to squelch its misery. Think of a television remote control. In the physical world of duality, there are two channels on this remote control, love and fear. You can think and act either from love or from fear. There are no in-between channels. It's truly a choice between happiness and misery. When you judge yourself or someone else, you are automatically cast upon the path of fear and misery. Even if the judgment seems justified, that's where discernment comes in to save the day. Consider these key differences between judgment and discernment. Judgment labels something or someone as good or bad. Discernment says, I'm attracted to this or them, and I'm not attracted to this or them. Judgment denies feelings and has no compassion. Discernment acknowledges feelings, including whether or not you're attracted to this. Judgment is one-dimensional and only sees faults. Discernment sees the various levels of involvement. Let's take an example of you not liking the smell of cigarette smoke. If someone near you smokes a cigarette, you can react from judgment, fear, or discernment, love. Judgment, fear, and ego will label the person as bad. Discernment and love and the true self would say, I'm not attracted to the smell or energy of cigarette smoking or those who smell like cigarette smokes. I will stay away. With discernment, there's no labeling the other person. There's acknowledgement of your honest feelings. Discernment is the expression of being on the love pathway. If you're on a pathway of love, you will be attracted to the energy of love. You will not be attracted to the energy of fear. Those who live primarily upon the pathway of love may not even encounter or notice the energy of fear. Remember, the pathway of love and fear have no intersection or common ground, but you can bounce back and forth between the two pathways. Holding loving thoughts does not lead to being universally compassionate towards yourself and everyone. It softens you in a strong way. However, being loving does not mean that you need to spend time with those who are walking the pathway of fear. You can, however, inspire through your living example of peace and joy and walking upon the pathway of love. You can also inspire social and global change through your willingness to be a positive example. Love is honest, and that includes you speaking from your heart about matters that speak to your heart. For those people who you deeply care about and perhaps are worried about, we do hear your prayers to alleviate this suffering. We do intervene to the degree that each person chooses to allow our support. Those who walk upon the pathway of fear consider themselves tough and strong, and their egos are threatened by anything soft, such as emotions like happiness and even health. So they push those gifts away. Compassion reveals that those who are afraid have had life experiences that have taught them this path. Many do not know anything but the fear that the world is dangerous and a competitive place. This is what they experience as a result of this belief, which many times was passed along by their elders. Someone who is unaware of any pathway except for fear is ignorant of other options. For them, life is a series of major disappointments interspersed with minor moments of joy. They pray for help yet refuse to listen to the guidance we offer, up like a life raft. Similar to judgment, guilt is fear-based, focused upon mistakes or errors. We watch humans harboring guilt about what they did or didn't do. In this sense, guilt is judgment cast upon yourself. Guilt is a double-edged error because it begins with a faulty premises that you have done anything that can undo God's handiwork of divine spiritual perfection. Any pain that you inflict upon others is part of the illusionary world of fear. This does not excuse or justify fear-based actions that are considered cruel or thoughtless. It simply means that all of the pain, lack, and suffering is within the nightmarish illusion, not in any lasting reality. From where we are, we watch how guilt weighs down the human heart. Binding it with such heaviness and love seems like a faraway fantasy. Guilt leads to feelings of unworthiness, including feeling unworthy of accepting God's unconditional love, help, and divine guidance. Those who feel guilty are also afraid of punishment. In fact, there's an unconscious belief that if you're punished, then the crime that you enacted will be forgiven. To punish yourself for your perceived crimes, you may deny yourself happiness and walk into a situation that will result in pain, perceived as punishment or karma. This double-edged error of believing that you're guilty and then judging yourself for it creates distractions from your heavenly calling, what you term your life purpose. Your prayers for our intervention are effective, of course, in relieving you from the burden of guilt, and even more effective at the curative power of unconditional love. God only knows, sees, and feels love. God acknowledges your true self as originally created, innocent, guiltless, and loving. This is unconditional love, which you can tap into directly by saying the name of God repeatedly. The name of God attunes you to the memory of your current residence within the womb of divine unconditional love. As you remember this primary spiritual truth, you feel your heart warm up and open to love. The heart is a portal through which God's love travels to others in need. That's where your heart is a portal through which God love travels to others in need. When enough people walk upon the path of love, the collective uplifting energy calls to those who are upon the pathway of fear. Like the magnet pulling them upward, they feel a familiar sense they faintly recall from their heavenly life. The sense of being unconditionally loved is the most basic memory and driving force within each sentient being, human, animal, bird, or fish. Everyone remembers pure love because everyone still lives within the pure love of God. Some futilely struggle to find that feeling with externals. This never works. Those who do find heaven during their earthly life are those who exude unconditional love. Instead of waiting to be unconditionally loved by others, they send the unconditional love from their mind and their heart, including towards themselves. Unconditional love lifts you up and insulates you from others' egotic energies and actions. The divine light of God glows within, from, and around you. You love yourself at the same level as you love everyone else because you love God's creations. There's no sense that you're less or better than anyone else, because that would be a belief in separation and its foundation, the pathway of fear. You respect yourself and others. You naturally attract and meet others who are also unconditionally loving, so you enjoy healthy relationships. Sometimes spirituality is misunderstood as a call to be saint-like and perfect. Again, only the ego is concerned with outward appearances of perfection. The ego judges, so it naturally fears being judged itself. The path of love acknowledges that people aren't humanly perfect. They are spiritually perfect. You are a role model of divine spiritual perfection by your decision to focus upon unconditional love rather than judgmental fear. Chapter 4.